This is Gail Kovac with Gresham Barlow School District. This is Summer School High School Credit Recovery, Data Reasoning and Learning Target number 6. I can create a dot plot, histogram, or box plot from a data set. So these are 3 different ways to display univariate quantitative data. So it's just one variable, and that is answers that come in numeric form. So these are number answers. So we have the data set here from 1 to 10 with some different numbers in between, and we would like to represent that in 3 different ways. Simplest way is a dot plot. Essentially, each value here get its own dot on top of the number line here, and duplicate numbers will stack on top of each other, kind of like a bar graph does. So I've got one data point here at 1, so I'm going to put a dot here at 1. You want to try and make sure your dots are the same size and are spaced similarly apart. I've got another one at 2. Otherwise, if your dots are different and they're spaced incorrectly, then your graph is going to look disproportionate. Then I've got 3 4s, so I'm going to put 3 dots on 4. 1, 2, 3, and they're going to stack on top of each other since there's duplicates. Okay, so I did that. I've got a dot at 5, and then 7 and 8. Here's 7 and 8. And then I've got a couple 9s. Let's do a couple 9s here. And then lastly, 1 at 10. Obviously, if you're doing this by hand, your dots are not going to be perfect, but as long as one is not horrendously larger or spaced differently than the others, then that should be totally fine. All right, so that's a dot plot. A histogram is much more like a bar graph. The only difference is that the bottom is going to show ranges of values. So you're not going to have a bar for each possible entry. You're going to have a bar that represents ranges of values. So here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 5 potential spaces for bars, and my numbers range from 1 to 10. So I'm going to spread mine out that each bar is going to represent 2. So we're going to start from 0. And let me make that 0 look a little bit cleaner. So starting here at 0, and then 2, and then here to 4, and then 6, 8, and 10. So if anything's in between those ranges, they're going to fall to the left. So for example, my first bar and this y-axis here is just going to be frequency. So this is going to be number of numbers, right? So does it, are there 4 of them, or are there 5 of them, that kind of thing. And you can even label that frequency if you would like to. I'm going to try and draw it sideways here. Let's see how that works out. Frequency. Frequency is how often. E-N-C-Y. It is hard enough to write sideways on a piece of paper with a pencil. It's even harder to do it with a mouse on a computer, but it's done. All right, so let's take a look here now at our numbers. My first range is all values from 0 to 2 inclusive. So my values of 1 and 2 are going to go in the first box there. So 0 to 2, and I have 2 numbers that are in between 0 and 2. So my bar is going to go up to 2. All right, so my next one is anything from just over 2 to 4. So if I'm looking at whole numbers, that's going to be 3s and 4s. So we're not including 2 anymore because that was included in the previous bar. So just make sure you're not double counting some numbers. So my next sets go from more than 2 to 4. So here are my numbers that are more than 2 up to including 4. So I'm going to have 3 of them. So this bar is going to go up to 3. And now what's also different from a histogram than a bar graph is that the bars bump up against each other, or they actually touch each other on the side here. All right, so my next one goes from more than 4 up to and including 6. So right now I think that's only one number. There's one number here, 5, that is in between greater than 4 and 6 inclusive. So there's just one of those. So here we go, 1. And then my next one goes from more than 6 to 8. More than 6 to 8, I believe I have 2 numbers there, including 8. So this one's going to go up to 2. And then my last one goes from more than 8 to 10. More than 8 would be 9 and 10. So here's my last bar right here. I've got 3 values in between that range. So here's my 3 like this. Now, if you were not given the original data set, if you did not see that and you only saw this histogram, it's going to give you a lot less information than a dot plot does. A dot plot gives you every single exact value and how many of that exact value you had. Histogram is slightly more generalized because if you didn't know the data set and you just looked at this, you'd say, I've got 3 numbers that are greater than 8 or up to 10, but I don't know, are those 3 9s? Are they 3 10s? Is there a 9 and 2 10s in here? Is there maybe a 9.25? I can't tell unless I knew the original data set. So this is a little bit more generalized, but I know there was a few numbers that were in between those two, right? All right, so the last one we've got is a box plot, and this is even more generalized data than a histogram. So for a box plot, we want to find our 5-number summary. And our 5-number summary is just 5 numbers that kind of describe the overall spread of the data, and we end up making a box and whisker plot from that. So one of the first numbers we need is the minimum, which is the smallest value of the data set. My smallest number here is 1. My next number I'm going to need is my first quartile, which I'll talk about in a minute. I'm also going to need our median, which I talked about in the previous video. I'm going to need my third quarter of data, third quartile, and then I'm going to need my maximum. So let's find the maximum now. That's my largest number. Minimum was 1. What's my largest number? It's nice that this is in order. My largest number here is 10. So minimum and maximum is more intuitive. Smallest number is 1. Largest number is 10. Median we've talked about before. Let's find the number in the middle, and that is in the middle once the numbers are in order. Again, they're in order, so that's very helpful. So I'm trying to find the middle here. Let's see, this one, this one, this one, this one. Sometimes with a larger number set, it's hard to tell, but yeah, I was right. It was 5. I was thinking it might be that 5. So it's always good to kind of double check and just cross off from each side to find the middle. If it's like, is it the 5 or is it the 7? I'm not sure. So my median here is 5. All right, so there are 2 more numbers we need. So we found the middle, we found the median. I want to now find the lower and the upper quartile. And quartile kind of sounds like quarter, and that's for a reason. We cut our values in half when we choose the 5. We are now also going to find the quarters of data. So we are going to halve each half. So on the left here, I've got values 1, 2, 4, 4, and 4. I want to find the middle of this left side here. So which number here is in the middle? Just ignoring everything else. I think it's this one, right? So this is your median. That's the number in the middle. This is going to be your first quarter of data. That's your quartile, first quartile. So that's cutting the numbers into quarters. And now let me find the third quarter of data, third quartile. The number in the middle over here is the 9. So this is my Q3. Now you'll know you've done this correctly if once you've cut everything into quarters and you've identified your median and first and third quartile, if there are an equal number of numbers in between each of those that you've circled, in which case here I've got 2 before Q1, I've got 2 after Q1 and before the median, I've got 2 after the median and before Q3, and I've got the last 2 here after Q3. So everything's evenly spaced apart. I have correctly put this into quarters. My first quartile is 4, and my third quartile is 9. All right, that's all you need to draw a box plot. You need your 5-number summary, minimum, maximum, median in the middle, and the first and the third quartiles. So now what I'm going to do on top of my number line here is I'm going to draw a small vertical line at each of those 5 values. So like this. Here's minimum. Here's maximum of 10. I'm going to put one at my median here at 5. I'm going to put one at my quartile 1 at 4, and then one at 9 here. All right, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little lines to represent my 5-number summary. Now those middle 3 here, you're going to connect across the top to be your box of the box plot. There you go. That's from Q1 to Q3. And then you're going to create the whiskers of the box and whisker plot by going from the middle of the side of the box to your minimum and to your maximum. So start with those 5 lines, connect the middle 3 to create your box, and then whiskers will be on the left and on the right coming out from the middle of those boxes. So this is a box plot or a box and whisker plot. The little lines on the side are called whiskers, and this is incredibly generalized from our data set. If I didn't see my original data set and all I had with this box, there would be very little I could tell from it besides my 5-number summary. And in fact, since we've cut this into quarters, it will tell you where quarters or 25% of the data lies. Like I don't know how many values are in this left whisker over here, but I do know that 25% of my data points lie from 1 to 4. My middle half of the data is the box, and that goes from 4 to 9. We also call that the inner quartile range. We can find the range and then just the range of the box from top to bottom. 9 minus 4 is 5, so my IQR, you don't have to find this for this problem because we've already done it. My IQR would be the distance from here to here, and 9 minus 4 is 5. That just tells you the distance or the range of the box here. I know that 50% of the data lies within that box, so that's the middle half of the data. And then there's another 25% on that right whisker there. So again, it doesn't tell me like, do I have like a ton of 6s? I don't know. In this case, I have no 6s in my original data set. But from the box plot, I really can't tell that. If I look back at the dot plot, I could see that there was a gap right here and that I didn't have any 6s, but you know, your box plot doesn't really explain that to you. So if you want specifics about the exact data set, your dot plot is the way to go. If you want more just kind of generalized, what does the shape of this data look like? You can see here that this is a little bit skewed to the left. I have like a tail pulled out to the left a little bit from that data, but that's kind of all I can really tell. So box plot is most generalized and dot plot is most specifically informative.